Some days I just don't even feel like getting up. All I have the capacity to do is take care of this baby, and I barely had the capacity to take care of myself. I had to wear two support bands. I had to have, industrial strength back brace to just keep my core up. And so it was painful. For you is that you have moms that have come before you that are now being very honest that this is hard, not feeling like I had to be superwoman. When you're a mother, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Like, it's not a failure, it's just a redirection. We got one life to live. I don't care if you go from being an engineer to an interior designer to a chef to a photographer. Just be great at whatever it is that you do and enjoy it.
Welcome to Baby Bump and Business, the podcast for creative moms growing a baby and a brand at the same time. I'm your host, B. Chopra Wilson, photographer, educator, and first-time mom to be, sharing the real, unfiltered journey of pregnancy, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. Each week, I'll be joined by a fellow creative mom to talk about the beauty, the burnout, and the balance of it all. So let's get into it. Today's guest is Kea Dupree, a commercial, corporate, and branding photographer with over 2 decades of experience capturing bold, polished visuals for major brands. She's also a mom of two and a creative entrepreneur learning to redefine success while raising a family through her work and her story. Kea empowers women to show up confidently, whether in business, motherhood, or both. She's currently expanding into speaking and mentoring, sharing the lessons behind the lens and beyond it. Welcome our guest today. Hi, Kea.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. And of course, congratulations. I'm so
Thank you.
excited for you.
Thank you. Thank you. So to start off, what got you into the creative or entrepreneurship space?
Oh gosh, I think I realized in my 20s that I may not be fit for a 9 to 5. Like, my first job out of college, it was from a temp agency. And I always say, if you're a fan of The Office, I was kind of like Pam at the desk. And so, I had student loans. So, I was like 22, 23. I was like, I just got to get a job so I can start paying off student loans. And the crew I worked with, they were great. But it was just, I was like going to the office every day and I have lunch at this time and I'm sitting in traffic at 4:30 trying to get home. And so I worked there for maybe a year and a half and then ended up finding a photography, high-end like portrait family studio in Gaithersburg, or most people will know Potomac, Maryland. So, people got money out there. So, we were allowed to like be creative and all that stuff. But then that came with retail hours. So now like it's, my Saturdays, my Sundays, and then Christmas pictures with kids was a lot. And so I was like, okay, I did that for maybe 4 years. Went back to a 9 to 5 at a physical therapy clinic, which I was still doing pictures there. I know it's a weird transition, but I was still doing pictures there, but also freelancing on the weekend. And by then I was shooting weddings. Once I got married, I was like, both me and my husband talked about it. And we were like, why don't you just go ahead? We'll quit the job. And so you can pick up uh, doing photography full time. And that's how it started. But the curveball is that 3 months after I got married, I got pregnant. So, and you know how that first trimester is.
Whoa, hell.
So there were a lot of changes for me.
So talking about that, so did you go full time right before you got married or right when you got married and then you found out you were pregnant?
So real talk, I was like, I'm not leaving my job until I'm under somebody else's health insurance.
Smart,
I'm
smart.
just saying. And so we got married in April of 2008. I think I put in my 2 weeks in like May or whatever I gave. I think I gave him a little bit of extra time. And then I found out I was pregnant in July. Yeah, of 2000. Oh, yeah. I was like, boop, 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 boop.
Wow.
Moved in, got married, moved in with somebody, left my job, got pregnant. So it was a lot of life changes that happened within 3 months. So yeah, it got a little crazy.
So how was that first trimester going through all those drastic changes in such a short span of time?
I'm one of the lucky ones. I did not have like morning sickness. I would get nauseous. I'm trying to think because one kid was a little bit different. Like I would get nauseous with one if I didn't eat, and nauseous with the other if I did eat before a certain
Ooh.
time. And you'll learn like after, your child is 10 years old, you're not going to remember anything. And so I didn't really have that issue. I was exhausted. Like, I don't know if there's like a prenatal narcolepsy or whatever, but I could not stay awake to save my life. And that was the biggest thing because I'm like, okay, I'm going to get up and do this today. And the next thing I know, I'm like on the couch and my husband would come home and I'm still in my pajamas. I'm like, sorry. So can you
I
imagine that
tried. I
that
tried.
created a little bit of a tension because he's like, "What are you doing?" So, I once I got into my second trimester, it definitely became a lot better and, still shooting some weddings and families and, all that type of stuff. So I was back to work, but it was still like it was cut back a lot. I dove a little bit into the housewife responsibilities, which, if you know me well, that ain't my lane, but I did it. I figured
Right.
it out. I was like, "Well, I gotta
Got
pull my weight."
right. Gotta do what you gotta do. So while you were
Yes.
navigating your freelance full-time business now while going through this pregnancy, what was
Mm.
the biggest challenge for you in that time?
Oh my goodness. You go through so many physical changes and hormonal changes, and especially the first time you kind of don't know what's normal, what to expect. Why does this hurt? Oh, that's round ligament pain. My ankles hurt. I got to use the bathroom every 5 seconds. So it was a lot of that. Um, I think at that time, I feel like I was doing more family photography than weddings. So it was great because I was, I would have 2-hour sessions. I was more weddings with my second pregnancy. So that was a little bit different. But it was a little bit easier to navigate when I had like those shorter family sessions on the weekends and then I was able to just edit during the week. So yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So during that time, did you have any stress planning what your maternity leave was going to look like during your first pregnancy, or was it just like we just gonna make it work?
We're gonna figure it out. Cross my fingers that, when I have to do stuff on the weekends. So this is the other part. My husband was also getting his second master's. So by the time my son came, there were times he would leave work and go straight to, I think that time he was at either Georgetown or George Mason here in Georgetown's in DC and George Mason is in Northern Virginia. And so he would be at, work and then have to go to class twice a week. And then every other weekend, he was going to class all day.
Oof.
And so it's like, I'm like, hey, I need grandma, grandpa, somebody to watch this kid so I can actually work. So it was really hard to plan. I'll be honest, it was a very much fly by the seat of my pants. Um, with the first kid, I think with the second, I definitely planned out a little bit better. But it was rocky, and on top of that, I went through really bad postpartum depression with both kids. So
Mm,
that was like an added layer of what am I doing? Some days I just don't even feel like getting up. All I have the capacity to do is take care of this baby, and I barely had the capacity to take care of myself. It was. I'll admit that first one was hard, and I was one of the only people in yeah, my close friends didn't have their first kids until like 5 years after me, so I felt really by myself, because yeah, I can call and complain to them or whatever, but they weren't really going to get it.
right.
I'll say my saving grace was I was at a birth center. I had midwives, and I was at a birth center with both kids actually, and we created a network of the moms who, had their babies in March of weight. So I kept in touch with a lot of them. The birth center had like mommy and me yoga and all that type of stuff. So if I got a little bit too depressed at home, I would go up to the birth center. I'm like, all right, do yoga today or something. So at least I was staying active and social with people because I was in a very dark place.
So
Yeah.
at that time, going through the postpartum for your first pregnancy, what did that look like for you, and how were you able to get the support that you needed? Because oftentimes we're not sure if it's normal, or especially
Mhm.
within our communities, these are the conversations we don't often speak about. So what did
Mhm.
that look like for you, and when did you know that you had to seek help if you did seek any?
It was actually my husband that noticed the biggest change. Like I knew something was off, but I think when you're a new mom, um, a business owner, and I'll just say, as a Black woman, we feel like we got to do all the things. So I'm literally just powering through. Like I guess this is how it is. So I just got to suck it up and do it. But my husband actually called my midwife, and he was like, "Yeah, remember in that group session that you had, we were talking about baby blues and postpartum depression." He was like, "I think we're beyond baby blues." And so
Mm.
I'm very grateful to my midwife, and I'll give her a shout out, Ebony, here in DC. She set up a appointment with me with a therapist to go, have a whole intake process and whatever else. And so that was very, very helpful. So it was between that. My husband when he could, but again, he was working and he was in school. And then, my parents would step in. But I think I kept a lot of things to myself. So I don't think people really knew how much I was struggling until it got really bad. And they're like, why didn't you ask for help? And I'm like, well, I did. And y'all were like, you be all right. And I'm like, I guess I got to be all right. Having a therapist, I think my son was six, 6 months old when I started going to her, if I remember correctly. And I stayed in therapy for years. Even, so whatever ebb and flowed, I always had somebody there to support me. So that was a lot of help.
Beautiful, beautiful. So going into that transition of having your firstborn and then having your secondborn, what was the preparation going into that, and how were you able to prepare differently than the first?
Oh, I prepped the team this time. I said, look here, specifically, if we do this again, I'm gonna need a little bit more support. I'm gonna need a little bit more me time. I'm gonna need to be able to shower when I want to without hearing the baby scream. I'm gonna need to be able to take a nap when I want to, and don't be standing over me with the baby talking about something that's crying. Figure it out. If I want to go to the grocery store, I'm gonna go by myself. If you want to go to the grocery store, feel free to take the baby with you. So no, but it was partially that, and then it was one of those things where you look back and you're like, I understand this now. I know how to move different. Now the difference is I also had a 3-year-old while I was pregnant, and if you will learn about the three-nager. I know we hear about the terrible twos, and I guess it depends on the kid, but I had a three-nager with an attitude. And I'll say this also, we did not realize at the time that my now 16-year-old son, who was the first one, was also on the spectrum. So there was an added level of that.
Right.
And dealing with his emotions, even as a baby. He wasn't diagnosed till he was 6, but it's like instinctively I knew. But I was even able to prepare my work. So always making sure I had, the right assistance on jobs, or so that I was just able to prepare myself, but also build the team and build the support a little bit better.
Perfect, perfect. So I think so diving more a little bit more into that, especially when we talk about entrepreneurship and creating our own businesses, those are the strategies that we often don't think about when we think about
Mhm.
motherhood and we think about what this process looks like. So what were all the systems and other things that you were able to put in place for your business to better prepare you for transitioning into having two children?
I ended up, let me see, my second was born in January, which thankfully is not a heavy wedding season. So I was like, okay, I can actually kind of take 3 months off. So not that I burnt myself out that, spring, summer, and fall and kind of into winter, but I did make sure I front loaded myself as much as I could. Like I think I was maybe 3 months pregnant, and I actually shot two weddings in one day. And the only reason I did is because they were at the same venue. And the first wedding, I had photographed the sister's wedding, I think a year before. And the second wedding was someone I went to college with. And so I was like, oh, I don't want to say
I
no to
figured
either one of these. Yeah. And so one was a morning wedding. It was like a 10 a.m. wedding. And so that ended. And then there was like the 5 p.m. wedding. So I just stayed at the venue all day. I had food. The first wedding I had, actually, Maya was with me for the first wedding. So she assisted me. And then the second wedding, I had another photographer come in. And my dad at that time was, I got my knack from photography from him. So he actually came. So I had two assistants
nice.
for the second wedding. I was just trying to load them up as much as I could. And of course, with weddings and families and stuff, all of that's only happening on the weekends. And so maybe I was working 3 weekends out of the month. Sometimes it was Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday. So that way I was able to just save and save and save. So when it was time for me to take off, I could actually just concentrate on that. Now, I will say the added benefit is that, I have a spouse who is in corporate America. So that was, a little bit of a cushion too. So,
Right. Perfect. Perfect. So shooting weddings pregnant is not easy. For me, it feels like I'm a sports photographer, so I've struggled
oh,
out here in these streets. So I
yes.
know being on your feet for so many hours and capturing and documenting these moments is difficult. So how are
Mhm.
you able to push through during your pregnancy doing all of that?
So it's a few things. I had some naturalizer shoes, or some whatever kind of, old lady looking shoes. So my feet were always supported. I always had snacks. I always had water. I had a belly band. And so not like the super stretchy one that doesn't really give you true support. It was like Velcro, Velcro. Oh, and I had like a torpedo belly. Like I didn't have the cute, like mine sat out. Like people thought I was having twins, and they would come to me like, is your baby like laying this
This way?
way? So I have a short torso. It was cute, but it was also weird. So I had to almost sometimes as I got bigger, I had to wear two support bands. And so it was like the lift up and then almost hold it in, not suck it in like a corset, but just so it wasn't like falling falling over. so so I think physically that's what helped was the shoes, the belly band, snacks, water. Whoever was assisting me for the day was always, they were always like, "You good? What you need?" Or if I need to sit down, I'm like, "Okay, well, we're at this reception now. Go ahead and take over." So we would always pre-plan. And most times I was working with Maya, and so she had a wedding I was shooting with her, and vice versa. So we already knew.
Going to be
At a certain
seeing.
point, we didn't have to really, yeah, we didn't have to really communicate at a certain point. And so that was it. And again, I would just have to rest on Mondays because it really or Sundays, whatever day was after the wedding, because I would feel like I got hit by a Mack truck. And so for me, my weekends were either Sunday and Mondays, or if I shot a wedding on Sunday, it was Monday and Tuesday because I had to physically recover.
Right,
So, and I think by that time my son was in school, so I'd drop him off and I'd come back and go sleep. So I was like,
right.
it is what it is this time.
And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's the thing where like everyone's been talking about like my journey, and I'm like the struggle for me is the fatigue and the exhaustion, where it's
Hmm.
like you're pregnant, so but you're used to doing a job a certain way, and having to sit down and take a break and having to do all these different things. It is a challenge mentally and
Yeah.
emotionally,
Yeah.
feel like having to go through that. And a lot of people don't understand. Like it's like, well,
Yeah. And you
yeah,
want
you're
to power
pregnant, but
through.
you want to
Yeah.
power through. It's like, I know what
Yeah.
I'm capable of doing. I know I
Yep.
can still do it, but
Yep.
it's like, whew,
Yeah.
okay,
But you have
okay,
to listen to your body.
right,
And the thing about it is I think sometimes we don't want to look like we're weak in front of our clients and we still want to do the job. But I mean, you have the conversation before they understand. Okay. I mean, for me, it's like, look, be 6 months pregnant, 8 months pregnant by the time your wedding comes. I'm going to have an assistant or two assistants. It'll be fine. They're like, all right, good. Just don't let your water break. You want well, be there. So yeah, I get it. Yeah. People I think are more understanding now. And especially for you, you have a reputation. You have a great reputation. And so I don't think anybody's gonna look at you like, can she do the job? She won't do the job. And we'll give her what she needs when she needs it. And you
right,
ask for it.
right. Now,
Yeah.
how was it for you asking for it, but also letting clients know that you were pregnant, right? 'Cause I know oftentimes, like for me, I didn't tell people until like maybe 6 and 7 months when I was really showing,
Really?
because,
Okay.
especially, like, in this field where it's more male dominant and you're
True.
working with more men, it's like you don't want them to see you as, "Oh, she can't work," or, "Oh, she's this," or, "Oh, she's that," especially if they're not surrounded by or experienced with motherhood or pregnant women,
Hmm.
you know? So for
Hmm.
me, I was showing up and it's like, "Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm here," and it's like,
Surprise.
"Surprise," you know? But for you, especially within your industry where you're working so closely with mothers and you're working so closely with women going through marriage and things like that, how
Yeah.
was it for you to have those conversations? And what advice would you give other wedding photographers who are planning on this transition of being able to be comfortable in asking, but also letting your clients know what this chapter looks like for you?
Definitely is very different than the industry you're in because, of course, when I'm working with families and things like that, they're just excited for you. What are you having? Yada, yada, yada. And for the record, I didn't know what I was having with either one. I was like, it's going to be like Christmas morning for me, which people got mad about that. I was like, why do you care? Not even people I know, it'd be strangers. Like, what are you having? I'm like, I don't know. But you can tell me. I want to, like, no, I don't know. Anyway, but and then weddings, of course, you have these brides that, you know, a lot of them wanted to have kids. So they're like, oh my gosh. And they follow you through their journey. And the cool thing is, once they did, like a year or two later, they're now pregnant. Like, guess what? And so a lot of us have been able to connect in that way. And one of my brides, we both got married in 2008. I think she got married 2 weeks before me. So we had that in common, like, oh, okay, you excited? And then, like I said, 3 months later, I got pregnant in July, and then she got pregnant in November. And so she called me so excited. And our kids, who are both 16 now, they're friends. Like they're best friends and, gone to each other birthday parties. Like I remember um I went over to her house to do newborn pictures. So I'm over there doing newborn pictures and keeping in mind I'm still nursing at the time. And so I was only there for an hour. I tried to just, do something quick for her because she lived not too far from here. Right in the middle of our session, my breast started leaking. And thankfully, as a new mom, she was like, girl, I got some breast pads over there. Again, totally different experience because you're dealing with women who are either excited about going through that process and like they're seeing themselves in you, or you're going through it at the same time. Or in other cases, as I got further along, um, I'm already in the game. So then they're asking me all these questions about, what is this like? What does this feel like? Nursing and whatever else. So it definitely is a different connection. But the cool thing is I'm still bonded to a lot of those women. And most of them are in the DC area. So when I made the switch to corporate, I'm now doing their headshots. I'm now coming to their offices to do their, group headshots or their conferences. And actually, the one who got married 2 weeks before me, she actually had me speak at her company's conference last year, which it was a medical conference. I was like, I don't know what you want me to talk about, but so it's definitely different than the sports industry. And even though I was shooting weddings from 2005 to 2017 was my last wedding. It was still at the beginning, I feel like still heavily male dominated. But then there was like a wave of women that came in and the industry kind of changed. So I think that was helpful for me.
Right, right. Now, so during that process of you're shooting weddings, you're doing all these jobs, and you're managing two kids, how did you find the balance of being a mother and still being a business owner and entrepreneur?
Again, the good thing is because of what I been shooting, let me say is also, I at first actually didn't want to get in the wedding industry at all. I was just kind of dragged into it. The universe just kind of dragged me into it. And I think it ended up being great because again, I'm shooting on the weekends. And during the week, my son was at school, and then I would edit like maybe when my daughter was taking a nap or something like that. I did get to a point that I started sending my editing out, so that was helpful. So then on the weekends, my husband was home, or if he had to do something, a parent or somebody would come watch the kids. So that I'll say that was a little easier to balance, especially the second time around. Because again, I was like, okay, I've learned this is what I need to do. I knew maybe I had 2 hours during the day to knock stuff out, and then maybe I need take another hour and a half after the kids were asleep and just throw some on Netflix and edit. So,
Right.
you know,
Awesome. So, with your second child, what was the biggest difference from your first pregnancy and your second pregnancy going into even whether it was physically, mentally, emotionally, what was the biggest difference for you?
with Lillian, okay, the difference was definitely that I had, like you said, a 3-year-old that I was running after also. But thankfully, like I said, he was also in school, so I would at least get breaks during the day while he was at school. I'm thankful that again, like I said, I didn't have too much morning sickness with either kid. Now, I will say I did start showing earlier with Lillian, so there was no hiding that. So yeah, I had to just tell people. And of course, when people are booking weddings, it's like a year out, 9 months out, or whatever. So I would have to tell them,
Right.
hey, just so you know, by the time I show up to your wedding, I may be waddling around. But like I said, I think I was just overall better prepared in terms of, like I said, the support and the team. But I'm also a kind of go with the flow person. I try not to overplan, because the plans that you make don't always work out. So sometimes you have to sit back and you're like, you know what, this didn't work out the way I thought it would, and that's okay. But I will say I was also busier business wise with the second one. But again, I had the support in place, so I wasn't as stressed.
Perfect, perfect. So I know that you spoke about on your form that you had severe diastasis recti. Can
Yes.
you explain what that is for women who, or for anyone who's not sure what that is and what that looks
Yep. So one thing I didn't realize, I always thought like your abs was just one muscle together like this, but there's like some connective tissue that's like elastic. So when you get pregnant, that elastic stretches out to make room for the baby and your organs moving around and whatever else. So remember, I said I have a short torso. So I didn't, have like the nice long torso for the baby to grow into. So my stomach just went out. And so when it went out, it stretched, 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 stretched. And that snap back that we hear about, oh, I didn't have that. And I was very disappointed because I was an avid gym person. I had a trainer. I was running all this stuff. I loved my body before I got pregnant. So I was like, I'll be good afterwards. No, no, ma'am. After about 6 months, I was like, why is this still sloppy? And it wasn't when people are like, you got to work out. I'm like, that's not what it is. And so my midwife actually told me while I was still pregnant with my son, she was like, I'm pretty sure that you have diastasis recti. And so when I laid down, just the way you could see my belly protruding, even while I was still pregnant, it was really alien like. And then not having those transverse muscles together, I don't think you really realize how much your core helps you with everyday things. And for us, we're lugging equipment, we're holding up cameras for hours, right? And I can't, like, I literally cannot suck my core in to stabilize myself. So I remember I had the 2 belly bands at one point. So after both of my kids, I actually had one of those back braces that you see delivery men wear, where it's like the Velcro and the straps. I would have to wear that up under my clothes, for especially during, shooting weddings. When I was at somebody's house, it wasn't that bad because I was only there for an hour and a half, 2 hours. But when you're shooting 8 to 10 hours and you can't hold yourself up and this equipment and something strapped across you, like I had to have, I mean, industrial strength back brace to just keep my core up. And so it was painful. And then after motherhood in general, you got incontinence issues. It's worse if you can't stabilize your core, and muscle spasm. It was not great. Now, most women will experience a mild case of it, and there's physical therapy that can help you like really kind of fix it, to strengthen your core. I tried to do that between physical therapy and chiropractors, and I lost 30 pounds because that was the other thing. I gained a lot of weight I lost my weight after my son, and then I gained some back between him and my daughter. And then I just never lost the weight after I had my daughter. And so I got a trainer, lost 30 pounds. But again, I have this abdominal separation. And so it actually made me look even bigger. It made me look like I was 4 months pregnant. So now I'm shooting weddings or, out. People are like, oh my God, when are you due? And I'm like, I had that baby 4 years ago. So, I tried all the things, and I ended up having abdominoplasty or a tummy tuck right before I turned 40, because I'm like, I've tried everything and I just want to feel better, number one. And I don't want people to ask me if I'm still pregnant.
Right,
So there was
right.
that. Yeah.
Now, especially with that, I know, like now we're hearing more conversations about that. But when you first had your kids, there wasn't a lot of conversations around that back then, right? So,
Mhm.
what is something that you wish you knew then that you knew now about that?
I don't know if I could have avoided it again just because of the way I'm shaped. I did not wear the support as much with my son as I did with my daughter because I already had the issue with my daughter. So my midwife was like, you're going to have to double band so it doesn't make it any worse. So I wish I did that with my son. Um, and I wish I did more core exercises after I had my son.
Mm,
But core exercises post pregnancy is not crunches because that actually makes it worse. And so I think there's actually more programs now that will have, post pregnancy ab workouts. So it's a lot of like just sitting in your chair and just kind of sucking in, and you kind of suck in and Kegel at the same time. So I wish I had those things that are actually readily available now, whether it's on YouTube or, physical therapy or anything like that. So that would probably be the main thing that I wish I knew.
So now girl, I'm learning a lot because I'm like, I know Ashanti spoke a little bit about it in her new show, but I was like, let me talk to someone real about, these conversations.
Yes.
Now, now going back to just like the business and surviving the journey of motherhood while being a business owner. I know that oftentimes we're told to, be grateful and to have grace during this process. And oftentimes, although we know it's coming from a good place, oftentimes that's not what we need to hear, right? So what are some things that really helped you, or how were you able to silence that noise to help you survive this process and get through this process?
Will be honest, and I don't think I was able to silence that noise, which is why I love having the conversations now with women who are pregnant or the ones that came after me. Because when I had my kids, Instagram was very new. TikTok didn't exist. So all of these, open stories that you see people talking about how hard motherhood is or marriage and just like I would actually post stuff on Facebook and people like, you're being negative. So I was like, okay, well, I mean, it's, y'all ask me how I'm doing. I'm not doing great. I can't give you rain. I'm not going to lie to you. And so it wasn't until maybe I'll say 5, maybe 6 years ago, if that you start seeing more of these stories come out. And I'm like, that's what I was saying, but y'all told me I was being negative. So you're gonna it's okay to go through the gamut of emotions. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be grateful. But it's okay to be not grateful on the days that you're like, why did I do this? Um, So, yeah, I mean, your feelings are your feelings and your feelings are valid. You can't sit in them too long, but I think the benefit for you is that you have moms that have come before you that are now being very honest that this is hard. And then again, on social media, you're seeing the conversations that are happening, even about perimenopause. Like that's my
Yeah.
timeline now is seeing the like, okay, so I'm not the only one not sleeping and having hot flashes and whatever else. So I would say, just always be honest with how you're feeling, and people are going to say what they want to say. I mean, you know that from being in the online space and whatever. But you got me if you ever need to vent. So and I think the only other thing that I wish I did was not feeling like I had to be superwoman
Mm.
and hire the help. If he's at, if my husband's getting his like I can't, I'm tired. I've been with this kid 18 hours today. I was draining myself, like really draining myself and not really understanding that I was just like, I have to do this. Um, but I didn't. I didn't. So it's like, have the help. And if the built-in help can't help or doesn't want to, hire somebody. We got nannies, we got au pairs, we got night nurses, we got college people who will babysit your yeah.
And and so what do you say to that? Because I know, again, like even with me through this process and having the conversations of like putting my daughter in daycare and all these different things, people are like, you can put her in daycare at 3 months. And it's always like some type of bashing that they don't realize that they're doing when you're trying to prepare for understanding what your work life looks like, when you know that you have a busy workload and you still
Mhm.
want to be an active working woman while being a mother and knowing you can still try to find that balance. How were
Mhm.
you able to, or what advice would you give again to us where it's like you said, hire the help, but also how do you get to that point of understanding it's okay to do that and not, not feeling that mom guilt that we always hear about?
Yeah. When you're a mother, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You're damned if you formula feed, you're damned if you breastfeed. Are you going to do disposable diapers? You're going to do cloth diapers. You're going to have natural birth because that's what I did. People thought I was crazy. You're going to use medication. So ultimately, you got to pick what's best for you. You do the research about whatever it is. You vet the people that you need to vet. Is daycare going to work better for you? Is the au pair going to work better for you? Or is the nanny going to work better for you? Like that's for you. And what works for you may be completely different than what will work for my lifestyle. So, like I said, people are going to say whatever they're going to say. Even if it's, what, I need a night nurse. I didn't know that was a thing until my neighbor, she said she had a night nurse. And in my head, I was like, girl, you don't get it with your baby. And I'm like, dang, I wish I had a night nurse do that. So there's so many options. And I'll go back to even my son being home with me. When he turned 18 months, I was like, he got to go to daycare. So I put him in daycare. I started off with twice a week. And then I think we moved up to 3 times a week and then full time. And then that brought him into school because I was like, I was like, I can't do this. I'm going to lose it. And people were like, but you're at home. So why don't you just, I am going to lose it. So if you want Kia on this side of the earth, Kia needs help. And this is what we're going to do. So, yeah, I mean, my best advice to you, just your motherly instincts are going to kick in and you will know, and you need to listen to them. I'm telling you, we are still mammals. I mean, you think about seeing lions and lionesses taking care of their cubs, and if somebody creeps up and they looking at you like you can play if you want to. I'm telling you that instinct will kick in, and just go with it. Do not talk yourself out of it. Don't let anybody else talk. Even your partner or your parent, they're gonna be like, "What? No, this is what I need to do for me, and this is what I need to do for the child that I am carrying, and I have carried, and I am energetically tied to." Period.
Love that. Love that. So for any mother out there who's for any creative entrepreneur who, whether they're in the wedding industry, family industry, about to go through this journey, is there any advice that you want to leave with them about this process and understanding that you can do it? Because of course we can do it. You're doing it.
Yeah.
You're kicking ass at it, and I'm so inspired
Sorry.
by this conversation. But
Thank
what
you.
is some advice that you would give them who's going into this process that may have some fears of not being able to work or not being able to have that balance of being a mother and a business?
I think we have to like really change our mindset on not only what motherhood looks like, what work looks like, what success looks like, um, and silence everyone else. I mean, you have your people that are going to give you good advice and everything like that. But this is your life. You live it how you want to, as long as you're living it authentically. and with grace and whatever else. Plan as much as you can, but understand that sometimes we got to have a plan B and C, especially when you're going through this process of having a baby. For instance, I went through the midwife and birth center process with my son. I was in labor with him for 40 hours. He was 2 weeks late, and I still ended up having to have an emergency C-section. And so the recovery from that was longer. That definitely kicked me into a depression. But then with my daughter, she was a week late. I had her in 6 hours. I had my 100% natural VBAC, and the healing process was very different. And so, you just kind of have to take life with the curveballs and be okay with it. Again, you have your plan A, B, and C, and sometimes even plan C doesn't work, and you just have to pivot. And you have to be okay with it and just make sure you have the right team. And if you have, a partner, you have to have open conversation because they're part of that team and they have to be involved. We did not make these children ourselves.
Part.
So I may push it out and nurse it, but you're gonna change a diaper, you're gonna cook something, you're gonna wash a dish. Okay.
Challenge.
Hmm.
Catch up on these 9 months of me going through hell.
That really, again, the conversation is more open now. We're understanding like the through hormonal process. I mean, this baby's cooking us for 9 to 10 months. We can't just expect to be back to normal in 3, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. It can. I mean, for me, again, I went through postpartum depression with both. It probably took me a year and a half, 2 years to get back to a normal place. And now I'm perimenopausal, so now my hormones doing something else, and I feel crazy again.
They don't know how hard it is being a woman. Listen,
We've been going through this since we were like 11, 12 years old.
and they don't go through nothing.
Man, I
I
mean,
always say,
y'all, let me not say that. They go through stuff. It's just not the same thing that we go through. Yeah.
I always say, if God wants to do this again, men should have the kids, give us a break. We could take everything else, but
There would be no humans on the planet, okay?
it will be population control. Just
This is true. This is true too. Because after the
that,
second one, people are like,
that-
you gonna have a third? Absolutely not. I'm finna get this tummy fixed and get my life together. But no, no, it's me time.
get back. Uh,
Yes.
before we close, I want to touch on one thing that you said, pivoting. And
Hmm.
oftentimes that is one of the hardest things that we have to go through in life, but that's one of the most common things that we have to go through as we grow from being a child to a college student or an
Hmm.
entrepreneur to an adult, where we're always
Hmm.
pivoting and we're always growing. What
Hmm.
would you say to someone who's struggling with this idea of being okay with the pivot? What advice would you give them in terms of embracing that it's natural and embracing that it's okay, and that
Hmm.
pivoting doesn't mean that it's the end of who you are? It's a
Yeah.
transition, but it's not the end.
Yeah, I mean, perfect example. Like I had a studio for 10 years and I moved out in February. And people are like, oh my God, what happened to your business? I was like, it just changed. Like it's great, but it's just changed where this $2,000+ I'm paying a month isn't worth it because I'm out in the field 90% of the time. Like it's not a failure, it's just a redirection. And so I think also I'm learning that I'm more intuitive than I understand, and when I feel like my soul pulling into a direction that feels uncomfortable, like even just doing this is very new for me. But I'm like, no, this is great. I'm enjoying this. Like, perfect example. And I talk about her all the time, but I have a girlfriend of mine I went to college with, and she was, I can't remember, agricultural engineering, some kind of engineer, great government job with Department of Transportation. She's working at national parks all over the country. And she decided at 30 something that she was going to go back to school to be an interior designer. Why not? Like if this thing that you're doing here is no longer feeding your soul, find something that is and make money at it. Like we got one life to live. I don't care if you go from being an engineer to an interior designer to a chef to a photographer. Just be great at whatever it is that you do and enjoy it. You can make anything work, but I think we're the generation where our parents, they got into corporate America, or here in DC, everybody was in government, which we see what's happening with that now. And it's like you get your good government job, you work that for 40, 50 years, you retire, and then cross our fingers, we'll be able to enjoy our retirement before we end up underground? And so our generation, I'm technically like the end of Gen X, but I think Gen X and the millennials, we're changing that. We're going on our trips. We're not waiting for the retirement to do the things. We're going to do it now. And so do the things that fill your soul do the things that you enjoy, do the things that will make you money. It will still feel like work some days, but at least you don't have to go in and be like, "Ugh, I hate this." There may be periods of your life that you may have to go get a 9 to 5, because let's be honest, entrepreneurship is like this. So you do what you got to do, but redefine what success looks like for you, your career looks like for you. And if you have to reinvent yourself every 5, 10 years, so be it.
Love that,
So be
love
it.
that, love that. And I think that's one thing that I have this conversation so many times with just women or just people in our generation where it's like they have this one identity that they're so attached to. So leaving
Hmm.
or changing that identity, it's hard. And of course, it's not an easy process. It's not easy to
Yeah.
go to transition into something new, but it's okay to transition to something new. It's okay
Yeah.
to explore and to learn new things about yourself and to see what
Yep.
other things bring you joy and what other things can fill your cup because
Yep.
we're always changing, we're always growing. What I used to eat 5
Yeah.
years ago, I don't eat
You
now,
may not
it's the
like
same thing.
it.
Right,
Yeah. I mean, for me, like at one point, one of the things that actually helped my depression a lot, I started a garden. My husband like helped me start a garden and then it just kind of took off for me to the point that I ended up taking a class in DC that now it was a certification class. So now I'm a certified master gardener. I could turn that into a business if I wanted to. It's just I have ADHD, so I like to learn a lot of random stuff. And so, but I love it. And my neighbors come to me for advice and whatever else. And yeah, there are times my business coach is like, why aren't you doing this and making money off of it? It's just not there for me yet, but maybe it will be. So
right.
who knows? Yeah.
Beautiful. So in closing, is there anything that you want to share about what you have coming up, about your business, about your brand? Is there anything that you would like to share with our guests?
It's interesting as we talk about pivot. My career, I'm still shooting, currently, I'm shooting, conferences and still doing branding. Most of my clients are female entrepreneurs who have left corporate America or are looking at leaving corporate America. So I'm helping them moving to their branding space. And I still do headshots and things like that. But this year, gosh, I think you may be my sixth or seventh either podcast or, live event that I've done. This is a very new space for me. And I'm telling you, the universe is just dragging me around like, you need to be here. I've always been behind the camera. I mean, I like makeup. I've had to learn how to redo my makeup because I can't hire a makeup artist every time I'm on film. So it's just a lot of things that are changing for me right now. But to go back to the original question, I'm still in the corporate branding and commercial space, but I'm starting to get into this speaking space. I'm going to be in Scottsdale speaking at my business coaches event. So I love getting invited to these type of things. And I'm doing a little bit more coaching and mentoring, which is another thing that I was like, I don't want to teach things. I don't want to do any public speaking, but here I am, and I'm honestly just rolling with it. So I don't have a straightforward answer as to what is going on with me right now because maybe I don't know. But I'm here and I still have my cameras and I'm shooting. So if you're in DC and you need me, holla at your girl.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, Kia, thank you so much for this lovely conversation. I learned
Thank
so
you.
much, and I know a lot of women are going to learn a lot from this conversation. So, thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your vulnerability, and thank you for sharing with us today.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. Congratulations. And I'm really here for you as a resource as you go through this journey. I am an open book, sometimes too open, but you let me know if you ever need anything or support or venting. I'm only a phone call.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Baby Bump and Business. I hope today's conversation reminded you that you're not alone in this journey and that there's so much power in building something beautiful while becoming someone new. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate, review, or share it with another mama or creative who needs the encouragement. Your support helps this community grow and lets more stories like ours be heard. To stay connected and get updates on new episodes and real talk from creative moms like you, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Baby Bump in Business. Until next time, keep creating, keep growing, and give yourself the grace that you deserve.